It's my pleasure to introduce our own Andrew Haffenden, resident of Dolphin Island, who gets out more than anybody I know to look at and study the birds on the beach. And so Andrew is a great expert on identification of pretty much anything that shows up on the beach. And one of the toughest challenges out there are the terns that occur. A great variety. We were blessed with a great variety of terns, and they are tough to tell apart. So Andrew's going to walk us through how to do this. So Andrew, I'll turn it over to you.
Identifying terns is what we're going to be talking about this evening. And in Alabama, as Jeff said, we've basically got 8 usual terns plus Black Skimmer, which is nearly a tern. Was a tern one stage, I guess. We've got 3 others that we'll talk about at the end that are rare. 2 of them are rare but usual, the others rare and rare. And we'll talk about all those as we go through. This is our lineup of terns: least tern, black tern, Forster tern, common tern, sandwich terns, gull-billed terns, royal tern, Caspian tern, and I said Black Skimmer. So quite a good selection, and I was out on the beach today, and except for these 2, the first 2, least and black, I saw all these terns and the skimmer. So even now, they're still around. So let's get into it. Long, elegant, aerodynamic birds always have long, narrow bills, long wings, and typically most of them during breeding have a black cap which runs to about the eye and across. Gulls, much more rotund, round, not as elegant, not as aerodynamic, much thicker, shorter bills. And when they do have caps, usually mostly a whole head or part of the head in breeding season or none at all. So terns are quite different to the gulls. Other differences: terns are mostly aerial hunters, in fact, always aerial hunters. They dive, they're very aerodynamic, they come diving down to the water, or they swoop over the water and grab something with their bill and take off again. A couple do that, not all that many. Gulls are much more feeders on the ground. They will go out to the water, they'll chase other birds, including terns, to get their food, but they're not birds that dive into the water. They're much more likely to be found like this on some rotting old, in this case, double-crested cormorant, and pulling stuff off it. So they're very different in shape and in their behaviour and in their hunting technique. So, tools for identifying terns, and by that I don't mean binoculars and all that. We're not going to go through that. We don't have time for this one. But with most beach birds, including shorebirds and others, we're not looking at them the same way we're looking at the little flitty things in the forest, which is always going on colour and other things. We're having a whole range of other things. I'll go through these. Number 1 is location. Where are you? There's only a certain number of species of birds that are going to occur where you are. Become familiar with those, and in a typical bird book, when you just go to location, you're going to eliminate 80% of all the birds in that book that you might likely to be able to see. So it really cuts down those pages of multiple birds, all of which look the same. Date is the next one. What time of the year is it? There are birds that occur here during the year, months of the year. They're summer breeders, they're migrants, they're winter residents. So if you know when they're likely to be here, which birds, then again, a whole lot of birds are eliminated. We only have a few terns in winter, whereas we can have up to, as I said, basically 11 in summer. So look at the date and the location, and then do a little bit of background on what is likely or possible to be seen. And on likely to be seen, the things that are most likely to be seen are the things that you too are going to be most likely to see, not all the rarities. You can see them, but first of all, ask yourself, why isn't this what I expect to see? not rather than what is this, or is this a rarity? Okay, size. Again, unlike the little flitty birds, warblers and vireos and the like, which are all different sizes, but the difference is so small, it's a matter of 1/4 of an inch, often 1/2 an inch, much harder to tell. Whereas with these larger birds, size is important because we get birds from about 7 inches long with a wingspan of 20 inches to birds that are 23 inches long with wingspans of 4.5 feet. So if you've got a concept of size, and if you look in the books, usually there's the name of the bird when you're looking through it, which is irrelevant because you don't know what the name is. The next thing the authors usually put in is size. Most of them assess that as an important thing, but no one looks at that. Everyone jumps down to the picture or to the description. But go for size, and we'll be talking about and seeing that as we go through. Shape is also useful. Most of the terns are pretty similarly shaped, but some have much longer tails. They've got long streamer tails, good for differentiating very similar birds like Forsters and common. Some are much more long-winged than others. Some are large-chested and a more conical shape. Others are longer and thinner and the same backwards and forwards, and we'll look at some of that. Behaviour. Watch the birds first without your binoculars to get a picture of what they were doing. Some of the terns you can identify at 150 yards without binoculars just on behaviour. So watch what they're doing, and that will give you an idea too of some more information. As soon as you get your bins on a bird, you're removing all the environmental and most of the behaviour information that's all very useful for identifying these birds. Hard parts, another thing to look at. Hard parts include bill length, long, skinny bill, shorter, fatter bill, and even the terns have those sort of variations. Thickness of the bill, and thickness is the height of the bill from the top to the bottom. Colour of the bill, monocoloured, bicoloured, general colour. Leg length, is a long leg bird or is a short leg bird. Leg thickness might help, and colour of legs. Then plumage. Is it in summer plumage, winter plumage, that is alternate plumage or basic plumage, other words for summer and winter? Is it worn? Is it feathers looking worn, a little bit ratty, not really neat with neat edges? Is it molting? Is it flies and you can see some feathers are missing, or it just looks pretty ratty anyway? This can give you information as well. Voice is common with birds in the forest, we know. It is useful in terns, but is not as useful as most of these other things. If you can see the tern, you'll identify it without worrying about voice. So they're all the things, and notice there's only been a little bit of information about anything like colour. When there's a reason for that, virtually all terns are grey and white. So we're not dealing with a lot of colours. So continuing. Look, size. I mentioned size. These are approximately relatively correct for the relative sizes of the terns. So now little least tern here is much, much smaller than a sandwich tern or these other terns. And so if you've got a concept of size, you can say, well, this bird is about the size of some of the birds you know. A laughing gull. Is it larger than a laughing gull? Smaller than a laughing gull. Much smaller than a laughing gull. Stands above a laughing gull. Laughing gull's a good bird to have as a general sense of size for the terns, because there's so often laughing gulls nearby. Continuing on size, we're building up. We've got relative sizes again. Just going back, this continues this. So Royal and Caspian. Caspian's the largest tern in the world. Going back, this least is the smallest tern in the world, about 7.5 inches and about 23 inches. So considerably different in size, and our Black Skimmer. So look at the size of the terns. One of the things about books, and even more, one of the things about apps, it's very hard to judge the size of the birds, which is why you look at them in the field and you can see them all standing around and say, well, that bird is obviously bigger than that one. So I'm dealing with but not much. I'm dealing with a medium tern. So gull-billed or sandwich or something, or it's not nearly as big, but it's not really tiny. So maybe the Forster or common, and then the little ones like black tern and least tern. So size is judged without your binoculars, just using your eyes. You can normally approach terns relatively closely, especially if there's no pelicans around, because they'll take off and send everything else off. So you can use your eyes to judge size, or scanning a flock. Just scan the flock, going through and say, okay, there's all the royals. They're going to be the most common one you see almost always. There's all the royals. I've got a size for those. Anything smaller than a royal, anything larger than a royal. And you can look for the different terns. Large terns again, there's a little bit of compression distortion here, but the large Caspian tern compared to the smaller, they're not standing on the same thing, but you can see there's quite a difference in their body size. Big, huge body compared to the much smaller body and much more delicately shaped body than this big honking body, big head. So shape and size are useful for those two, and we'll talk a bit about that too. So Caspian and Royal. Everyone talks about the orange bill of the Royal and the black bill of the Caspian with black tip. These can develop, as we'll see in a photo coming up, very, very red. So be aware that you can get very red, not as deep blood red as Caspian, but very red. This is in about September, and the Caspians have still got most of their black cap. The Royals have already lost a lot, but you'll notice that in their non-breeding plumage, the Caspians have always got black dots across the eye. We'll see that as above on the cap of the head. Royals lose all the black on the head until they've just got the strip around the nape. So you've got, as you have now, all a tern that's a large sized tern and it's got a white cap, it will be a royal. Because none of the royals at this stage of the year, again, time of the year, have got any black left. They've all molted into their basic plumage. Other than that, grey, black wings, This is the much finer orange bill and orangey, and this is much larger. But look at the chest depth. This bird is triangular. From here to there, back to here. Triangle shape. Oops. And you can see that when it flies. As well, this one is much more even. This sticks its head out here, it's still going to have a big, deep chest. This one, when it sticks its head out, looks the same at the back and at the front. This is a completely different shape. And these two birds are often easiest to tell for that and another reason when they're flying, not in a big old mixed flock. So going again here, so Caspian is big, bulky front here, but again, you can see this triangular cone shape really, with the head sticking on top. Big bill, very heavy looking head on the top. In summer plumage, breeding plumage, all black cap. Same here, all black cap, but notice the shagginess on the back. Everyone talks about bad haircuts and all this, but there's always some shagginess, and we saw it up here as well, a little bit here. This has got virtually none. You don't usually even see that much. This has got much more shagginess here. And so this one does not have that shagginess. Much neater looking black head. The shaggy will give away royal each time. Same orange bill, big heavy red bill. But the big bulky head, big bulky front is much different. It's much more smaller, more elegant head, neck, lighter weight front. And we see it here. Here's the Caspian, still got black. Here we are in winter, still got black on the head, and we'll keep that. Still got a black bill. By now, any red-billed royals are gone to an orange bill. So However, look at the size of the head, size of the bill, big, deep chest. When these are flying, this huge head and bill is very obvious compared to the much more elegant. Now, if you stick this head out here, it runs out here, it's going to be long and narrow, and as I said, so the back and the front look about the same with an oval in between. These ones, the back, is still long and pointy, but the Caspian got a very solid head. In addition, and this is one of the best things for when they're flying, these birds almost always carry their bill at a 45-degree angle. So the head is leaning forward a bit, it's angled a bit down, and the bill is angled down. Except when they look down for actual food, these fly with their bill sticking out. So if you see this bird, a bird making a passage, is flying along, not hunting, along the beach, over the water, and its bill is sticking straight out, then it'll be a royal. If it's flying along, especially over the beach, or just making a passage, not actively hunting, then, but its bill is constantly down, then it's a Caspian. In that thing, these, when they do fly, the back of the head tends to stick up a bit in a little hook. So the bird, it's hard to describe, the back, if you can see on this, looks like that, then the head goes up a bit and down. So it's pretty geometric shape, whereas these just stick out the front quite elegantly, and these do not look elegant front-wise, and they've got the very heavy bill front. They're also a much stronger flyer, so if you're coming over the causeway in a 25-mile-an-hour wind to the island, and there's some terns hunting there, these things will be flapping around like crazy. They'll be going from side to side and being jiggled about by the wind. Then this bird will come along, it's just rowing its way through the air, slow, strong wing beat, not being blown around, just making its way through. That's your Caspian. Here we go, royal terns, all royal terns. So this one, yellowish, this one orange, this one red. Half the people I know see this out on the beach and they'll call it a Caspian because of the red bill. Nope, just a male in strong breeding hormonal state, very red bill. This is an average orange bill, and this is the sort of yellowish bill that less hormones or a young bird will have. So don't just go on the red bill. But if you look back here, you look at the shape, this big, very deep, very solid bill, and much thinner, longer bill. We can see that here. Big, heavy bill, much more elegant, long bill. So, royal terns and Caspian terns. And this is them flying here again. We see this angled down bill. We don't see the head back there, but this angled down bill. Royal tern, the front, this your elegant little triangle, back this elegant little triangle. This one, if you could see the tail properly, it would be this triangle, but look at the front, square, 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 square. Not this long, thin thing at all. Very big difference. Still got his black. So look for that flight, the way they fly. Young Caspians. We're going to do young terns because a couple of months ago they were all over the place. Caspian looks a bit like a winter one with a mottly black head, orangey bill, orangey red, but still usually has a bit of that black tip. But look at the typical tern colouring. Most terns have got brownish mottling on the back, has this one. And see the Caspian, dark haired. And here's the royals. They tend to be grey, dark grey to black and white, rather than brown. Yellow bill, and not by any means a full head of black like the Caspians. So brown mottling, black all over the head, large solid bill still, but this brown mottling, black and white type mottling. These feathers along here will often be much browner than this. We can see it. I can't because we're waiting to admit someone here, Shirley. And but on this one, there is the browner appearance of the bird. Leg colour. Leg colour is very variable in terns. They'll often start off black or yellow, and then transform over time to their adult colour. So don't just go on leg colour, oh, it's got black legs, it's got yellow legs, it must be this. We'll see, they're very variable. Look at the rest of the bird. Caspians tend to have darker legs as juveniles all the time, but even so, especially in some light, you can get this yellowish on them. So now sandwich tern, that was our largest terns. We'll have a look at sandwich tern. Here's the typical sandwich tern. You'll know, again, white, grey, black legs, black cap, black bill. Then a couple of terns that typically you've got black legs, black cap, and black bill, sandwich gull-billed, and we'll look at the differences between those two. Medium-sized tern, third largest of our tern, normal terns, after we come down from Caspian to Royal to sandwich. Okay, sandwich tern. Here's our Royal tern, and here's a sandwich tern in the back, and this size difference, this is a little bit roused up, a bit fluffed up, but this size difference is about correct. You saw this shagginess on the old Royal here, which is typical. This one, which is closely related, also is shaggy. So these are our two shaggy birds, the sandwich and the Royal. You see here, shaggy, shaggy, shaggy. Everyone goes on this feature. We'll talk about that next, the yellow tip, but you often can't see that. Another thing we do see in sandwiches quite a lot in early summer, especially where they've been feeding in areas that get cold shrimp, is they get quite a pinkish blush on them. No, you haven't found Alabama's fourth or something roseate tern. You have found a coloured up sandwich tern, although these will also get that as well. So be aware that this pinkish colour, again, we can see the sandwich terns, shaggy hair and long thin bill, very narrow bill, long and thin. We see that back here, it's open, it's a long, thin, narrow bill. That's the thing to look for. When these birds are flying, the light behind them often makes this disappear, and you just see, you don't see the yellow, or you can't see the yellow tip. So look for that long shape, long narrow shape of the sandwich, because the thing you'll be distinguishing it from is gull-billed, and once you get this block off here, you can look a little like a gull-billed, but not really, because it's much longer, thinner bill. Let's just go back here. Yeah, so they do have this yellow tip. Typical, the mnemonic, whatever it is to remember, it's the mustard that the mayonnaise that the tern dipped it in the sandwich. So look for that, but you will not always see it, even when they're sitting against white sand or when they're flying. So long, thin bill is the thing to go for with them. Juvie sandwich terns can be one of the hardest things to tell in the field. They are so variable. These are all sandwich terns, and we've got ones with black bills, black legs, orange bill, yellowish legs, black and yellow bill, orange legs, yellowy orange and a little bit of black bill, black legs and longitudinally two-tone, pinky orange and black. All sandwich tern juveniles. Again, we've got the typical pattern of juvenile terns with centres dark and the rest of them light grey with white fringes on the feathers. This can often look much browner than this, depending on the light, especially early in the morning. But this patterning tells you you've got a juvenile tern. But yeah, do be aware of this great range of colours of the sandwich terns. Now, this one, if you saw this bird, just a little bit of black, what appears to be a big black eye, orange bill, pale all over, white head, a lot of people are going to be very fooled as to what on earth that tern could be. But it is not a tailless tropic bird. it is a juvenile sandwich tern. Juvenile sandwich and juvenile royal, very similar. Black leg, orange bill, shaggy, grey with dark centres to the feathers. This one's a bit older, but still the same thing. You see the dark centres to grey feathers, white. So very similar. This is where we go to bill shape. Long, thin bill. Juvenile terns generally got shorter bills than adults, and we see a much more solid, much deeper, not nearly as long and thin as the sandwich tern. I've not seen any black royal tern's bill as a juvenile. However, I've seen pure orange sandwich terns. So if you see black on the bill, you've probably got yourself a sandwich tern. But if you only see orange, you don't necessarily. So look for that long bill shape and the size. Sandwich terns are around 2/3 the size of a royal tern. Just thought I'd throw this in, a little bit of sandwich tern behaviour, and also shows you, yes, they are definitely shaggy, and they do these are erectile feathers, so they can lift them up and display them. And this is the thing that happens in the breeding grounds. You get these groups of terns racing around, and they'll surround pair and their chick, and these will run across the area, and they seem to want to get close to the chick. And I think these are ones that have lost their young or not bred, first years, not breeding, and all their chick hormones are coming out. But this is quite typical to see in the breeding, on the breeding grounds of the sandwich tern, these display groups, and can be up to 40 or 50 birds. And the adults seem to want generally to keep them away. Interesting behaviour. So the look-alike, as it were, for the sandwich tern is our other black-legged, black-headed, black-billed tern, is gull-billed tern. But again, we're talking about tern the shape. The shape of this bill is quite solid, that's why it's called gull-billed tern. Not a long, thin, narrow bill like these sandwich terns. Very long, very narrow bill. Gull-billed tern, much thicker. The other thing is this does not have a shaggy crest. It's got quite a lot of black going down the back, but this one always looks neat. In the field, it looks white, it's very light coloured, and very light wings. Then the sandwich tern has dark primaries, very light primaries on the gull-billed tern, but very, very elegant looking tern. Quite looks like it's in a tuxedo. Everything's very contrasty. And these are not very common. So if you see a flock of 60 of these on the beach, that's going to be sandwich terns. It's not going to be gull-billed terns. Gull-billed terns down here tend to exist during the breeding, so they're only here during the breeding season up to about now. There's a couple left. But they usually hang around in pairs. So a pair of terns sitting high on the beach by themselves, away from the flock. Have a look at them because they could very well be gull-billed terns. That's typical behaviour of gull-billed terns. There's another good behaviour on these ones. These terns are surface feeders primarily. So what they do is when they're hunting over water, they'll dive down, but generally they'll only pluck fish that are right on the surface or just below it. They don't plunge dive like sandwich terns and royal terns and Caspian terns and those. They come down like the marsh terns, just come down, grab something and fly up. They'll also eat insects, grasshoppers and the like, butterflies over the water, but also over land. So if you're walking along the beach, as I alluded to earlier, and 150 yards along the beach, over the dune area, over the sand, there's a tern that sweeps down right to the beach, comes up, moves, sweeping down, obviously looking for something on the sand or in the vegetation of the dunes. That's a gull-billed tern. The sandwich tern is not going to do that because it's a plunge dive, and if it plunge dives into that sand, it is in trouble. So it's a great behaviour method to pick up gull-billed tern as they're foraging along a beach area. Here's the basic gull-billed tern. This is something that a lot of people could easily confuse with a gull. It's got the typical gully type spot here, a little bit of darkness here. Short, dark bill, generally overall grey and white like our laughing gulls. This could be sitting in with laughing gulls or Bonaparte's gulls and be very easy to miss. Fortunately, at this time of the year, they're very uncommon and very unusual to see, quite unusual to see them. Another week or two, they'll all be gone. But do be aware when you're looking through your flock that gull-billed tern can very much resemble a juvenile, a Bonaparte's gull or a young laughing gull or the like. Here they are again. I put this in and see how you could easily miss these, but also giving a relative size of the sandwich terns around them. This young one, healthy young one, see the dark centres to the wings, a bit left here, compared to the adults, which is just plain grey. There's no pattern on gulls. Wings don't have patterns, only the juveniles. So with plain grey, you're talking about an adult. If you've got a pattern, you're talking about a juvenile with terns. Okay, two of the easiest things to confuse in the tern world, Forsters and common terns. You have a couple of them here. Forsters have got longer legs. See how short these legs are down here? Very short, much longer. And this is enough to actually identify them in the field when you see, again, a flock of terns. You've got a bunch of these smaller terns. Remember, they're much smaller than the royals, smaller than sandwiches. If you look along and suddenly there's a couple or one whose belly is much closer to the sand, that's going to be your common tern. Shorter leg, they look much more waddly as they walk because of those legs. They waddle along, they don't stride as much as these. The other thing I mentioned is the tail of our common tern. Here's the wings. Here's the tail during the breeding season of the Forster's tern and after the breeding season for a while. And here are the wings. Long tail streamers hanging out from the tail, so much longer tail. When they're flying, it comes out as like a horseshoe, a U shape. Often when they're flying, and these have just got little slightly elongated tail feathers. So if it's got these long streamers, relatively long, going past the primary tips, then you're looking at a Forster's. Otherwise, you're looking at this. Other than that, they're pretty similar in their breeding plumage. This can have much more orange on the bill. They tend to go much redder in the feet, in the legs, in breeding, but there's enough overlap that until your eye gets pretty used to what's the more fluorescent orange of the Forsters, that the actual length of the feet, legs, tarsus, whatever, metatarsus, is the best guide for that. Streamers, blacker streamers, short legs, and the deep red colour on both bill and legs. Forster. These are also a beach bird. These tend not to be a beach bird so much. These are on docks and jetties, sitting around. These are much more likely to be seen sitting on the beach. This is what I mean about the tails. See here, Forster's tern, long tail, feathers sticking out. You're not worried about bill colour or anything else. But we've got the long tail feathers sticking out. The common has got just these short little extensions on the tail. So very different in appearance because they fly. The other thing, from underneath, see this long wedge-shaped black, very distinct with this black edging. This one, that is not distinct. You usually don't see anything like the black wedge. You can see this by your eyes, binoculars, in a photo. You might see a bit of this, but it hasn't got this triangular shape of black along there and black along here. This has got the black and black. So that's a good pattern for underneath. But usually if you can see that well, you can see the tail on this is molting. So quite different. The other thing, grey underneath. Most common terns will develop a grey belly and breast up to about here in the breeding season. The Forsters retain their pure white belly throughout the year. So the three things here, this, the grey front, white front, tail, tail, are good ways to distinguish these two birds. Let's see if I got something else here. No, I haven't. Okay, so juveniles of these two terns. What we see here is the typical Forster's pattern as it gets in, not juveniles, I mean winter, but it also looks like a juvenile. This teardrop shaped pattern over the eye, fully enclosing the eye. And even when it's not quite fully enclosing it, you can hear, you can sort of make it out that there's this big pattern going to develop. And as it starts to lose more of this black in both directions, when it's gaining it, when it's losing it, you can see this shape in here. So you can't see the eye. You can see the black pattern, but you can't see the eye. Common tern, everyone talks about the carpal bar, but wind will blow this up, and this can look much darker than this as a carpal bar, so be aware of that. But this will develop this carpal bar. You can see here, the bird has only got about the same amount as this Forster. So that can be a bit of a fool. However, if you look at this, you can see the black cap pattern of the common tern in its basic plumage. You can still see the eye. There's a little bit of black in the front usually, and it's variable, but the eye is not enclosed overall. So you put your bins up and you can see the eye, but the pattern is quite different as well, with the black going down on the nape, no black on the nape, just this. But at this stage, when they're much more confusable, and just beyond this, when a bit more of this black is gone, this eye will still be distinguishable, and the Forster's eye not distinguishable. So that's the winter plumage of these two devils. Common terns again, carpal bar, here, here, here. One not so far along into basic, but you can see here that you can see the round shape of an eye sticking out against that black. Here, before it's off, you can't, but distinct eye shape, round eye shape being able to be seen. Here, no such thing. Can't be seen at all, can't be seen here as a distinct eye shape. So look for that particular pattern with the eye poking out the front, and that can be confirmed by the carpal bar. Again, small sizes. You have our hunking Caspian and somewhat smaller Royal, but you can see here's the Royal here, how much smaller. So if you've got a size of this, it can't be much confusion. These two birds technically look about the same. Red bill, looks like black legs by now, black legs, black cap, dark wings. If you didn't know anything about size, these could be difficult to tell apart in this photo. When you think about size, hugely different, even from our Royals here. So keep size in mind when you're looking at these birds. Black tern, we're getting down to the small terns now. How's that time going? We're getting there. This is our second smallest tern, only here in migration. arrives back early in June. We start to see these July and August. August is a great tern month. They're very, very common. We can get these things in the hundreds and hundreds. And but they're not a winter tern. And like the commons are not common in winter, but some are here, but mostly they're not. So in winter, Forsters is the most likely one of those two small terns. But the books will tell you about that with those little distribution maps of anywhere. So black tern, well named, when it's in breeding plumage, all black at the front, dark grey wings, and this distinct line separating the black from the back. I just want to run back to the common terns because I realise this one is showing you that dark grey of the belly, throat and breast of the common tern, whereas if this was, was it Forster's, well, yeah, the Forster's looks like this, and common would look like that. So back to this. Yeah, so dark and thin, fastball flyer, a bit larger than the least, but only by about an inch, but they definitely look bigger when they're sitting around. Here we are again, very variable as they molt into their breeding plumage or out of their breeding plumage. Here's one that's nearly into full basic plumage, the dark back, black and black, and nothing on the head, but much smaller than a sandwich tern, and flies with a very butterfly type of backwards and forwards fluttery flight, again like a marsh tern, which they often are. So they're not just flying along flat, flat, flat bird. They tend to sway from side to side and much more fluttery flight. A good way to distinguish them, especially when they're like this, a bit more in least terns. There's lots of other differences, but just in the flight pattern. Least terns fly like a Caspian tern, much more, although they do a little bit of side to side, whereas these are much more fluttery, lightweight terns. You can see all the variations as they molt between these different stages of black tern. Great little terns, but quite variable. And our last of the common terns, least tern, also the noisiest of the terns, the second maybe to a juvenile Caspian following its parent, or even a royal. But these are the ones that are always going the sound of someone on the Gulf Coast beach. Our little least tern, smallest tern in the world, is about 7.5 inches. The Australian version of these, fairy tern, is about the same size. But yellow bill, black tip, yellow bill, black cap, yellow legs is the typical least tern. Spends a lot of time displaying through the breeding season. They are one of our breeding birds. So they're arriving in April, early April, and departing by now. They actually, last ones were around, I guess, a month ago. So we are seeing these up until about mid-September. Mostly all of the least terns are gone by early to mid-September. They breed on the open beaches and on rooftops with gravel. So least terns. Then we see them here, things to look for in a least. This big white forehead going back, white going back to the eye, and a long thin loreal stripe coming through it, yellow bill, yellow legs, and very small size with long wings. Over here, it's a first summer bird. In the first summer, they don't develop a full black cap. They develop a thing that's a little bit like a Forster's tern in winter, but it continues across the nape. But they've got the yellow bill and the yellow legs. But yeah, so this is first summer, and as they turn into winter, they look the same. But in summer, that will be their first year. They were born the year before. Please turn young. This is a fledged young. Very pretty, these light brown, cinnamony colour nearly. And you'll see them on the beach here. I put these in because we do see these on the beach, and if you're walking near a colony, which you should stay way away from, even further than any rope or anything that's up because it sort of disturbs it, you may see these darling little chickies. But these we see as fledges, and just slightly larger than this, are quite common on the beaches here over on Baldwin County and on Dauphin Island. Black-billed, variable yellow black legs, but this cinnamony pattern, and very pretty birds. Again, first summer bird, side patch reminiscent of a Forster's tern. Black-billed, but again, so much smaller than a Forster's tern. Forster's tern running around 12 and a half inches. This thing running around 7.5 inches. So much smaller bird than the similar Forster's tern. Flying, this one, again, the band on here, first summer, black-billed, very small tern. They do a lot of good hovering and then dive. But again, I mentioned the Caspian tern. Notice the shape of this. It's tailed out like that photo of the Caspian, but it comes to a point at the back, but it's very square on the front. It's built like a miniature Caspian tern, and flies along a lot with the bill down. So this much more conical shape than the other terns. And this one, here's a pair of least. This one is just seen off the black tern. Again, I'm put this in part to show the size of the least terns are only a little larger. But while we're here, and we've got a couple of minutes left, I just want to point out one thing here. See this black tern back here? It's not twice the size of this tern, though it looks it. There's a phenomenon that's much debated called compression distortion when you use relatively high power optics, but not with your eyes. Our eyes are used to seeing things that are the same size. If one's further away, it's going to be smaller. If one's closer up, it's going to be larger. So we see that when people are holding those big fish or rattlesnakes or something out in front of them at arm's length, looks as big as their head. But when you're using high-powered optics, you can get this thing called compression distortion. And in fact, things further away can look larger than things closer up. So be aware if you think, well, it looks like, you know, a whatever, but it looks so much bigger. What's that really big one in the back? They all look the same, but there's this huge one in the back. Consider that compression distortion may be the cause for what you're seeing. Okay, Black Skimmer, not a true tern, but close enough for government work. And the typical black, there's only one other bird that looks even remotely like this, and this is the American oyster catcher. But the American oyster catcher is a big long bird with a round body and a completely different shaped bill. But when they're squatted down like this, which the oyster catchers will do, they can be a little bit more difficult. Note the absolutely straight line of the white under here, whereas compared to the old dark head of the oyster catcher. Little chicks, noisy things, always got their mouth open. Can't take a photo of a skimmer chick without its mouth open. So black skimmers, I think we all know these. One of the things that fools people, very wide bill. Try to get a look from the head on. That bill's like 1/8 of an inch wide. You know, very deep and looks huge and heavy, but it's so narrow like a side. You can see that here. You know how narrow that thing is? Cuts through. Warm black skimmer, not so black. Bill's gone orangey now. It's not as red as in the breeding season. Bill legs are still red. Juvenile black skimmers. This is morning light. It could look just like this in the afternoon light at 3 o'clock. So be aware of different colours due to different light. Very patterned bird, hang around with their head down, and you often see them lying haven't got a photo of one, lying on the beach, completely flat, with their bill sticking out on the sand as well. It's a common way for skimmers to hang around. They do have a big head. The back part of the bill is pretty heavy, I'm sure, so they tend to lie around. So these are black skimmer juveniles, fledges, both flighted birds, and the typical feeding pattern of the black skimmer. And everyone likes black skimmers, but they're not the friendliest birds in the world. This one is chasing someone else's chick, and they will actually catch chicks and kill them, or take them and drop them outside the colony area. For colony bird, that seems strange behaviour, but a lot of colony birds do that. And unfortunately, we get these mixed colonies with least terns, and they can cause considerable chick loss to the least terns. Not a happy chick. Interesting photo I took a couple of years back. See a least tern, I just mentioned the interactions. Black skimmer arguing, and the reason they're arguing is down here is the least tern's nest. We can see its eggs, but a wandering skimmer chick, this one's chick, has gone over, and they like depressions, so it saw the depression and it's hunkered down in the nest. And of course the tern, least tern, is going crazy, got this big heavy chick, squashing and pushing around its chick. So there's a fair bit of altercation going on between these two defending parents. Okay, our rarities. Sorry, I don't have a decent photo of a bridal tern. I'm not seeing one in the US where I could have got a photo, seen them, but not the photos. So the three rarities: sooty tern, bridal tern, common noddy. This is probably of the three rarities, the one that you're most likely to see. All three of these birds, the Gulf birds, they breed out, nearest ones are dry tortugas. They spend their time running around on the Gulf birds. They're pelagic terns, so you go on pelagics, Jeff, to find them, right? This one is the most common one that we seem to get here that we can actually see. They get quite close in. We often see them as wreck on land, like this one. This one just flew in and landed. And it's always during hurricanes or other storm events. Otherwise, they're always out in the Gulf. Sooty tern has got a big, wide forehead, like a least tern, and comes back, and the white comes back just into the eye, but it's a big triangle in front of the eye with a distinct white thing. Bridal tern just got a narrow supraloreal going down into the lores, sort of lores, just that supraloreal area. So much narrower, doesn't have this big white forehead that the sooty tern has. With juvenile sooty, occasionally these can be seen close in, especially say out in the pier, what was the pier, at Gulf shores. We can get out a bit, more chance of seeing one, or on a pelagic, or if you do go to dry tortugas. The other time we see these birds is inland during hurricanes. These do get blown inland, and that's a time that you may see these fledged juveniles that have taken off and get blown up from the dry tortugas and end up in a circle that takes them through Alabama, up the Chattahoochee often, into northern Alabama and other areas, and coming back down through Mississippi or somewhere. Common noddy, again, breeds over in dry tortugas, and cosmopolitan bird right around the tropical polygon, really nearly, right around the tropics. And not as tern looking as the other. It's not the typical grey or black and white, sort of, and white underneath and all dark. This is the rarest. I forget how many records in Alabama, 4 or 5 maybe. So this was during hurricane a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. And then earlier this year, one was seen by a couple of people off Fort Morgan. Again, I think that was in Christabel. So that's the time, but these are very, very rare. Whereas these, if you're out there on storm watching, then chances are you'll get to put these on your Alabama list. Really pretty birds, Sooty, Bridled, and brown Noddy. And with that, I say thank you. Let's just put something pretty up. And we've got, I don't know how this is all, well, right on the money pretty much. Now, if anyone's got a quick question, you can unmute themselves and ask. I'll try to answer it. Don't all speak at once. Okay, well, sorry to have to rush through that. An hour is pretty quickly. There's only fundamentally 9 birds, but I hope you got some information from that of our terns as we, let me run back to the different ones up here again to show them. So just to run through them again, the small least tern, but see the shape of this tern. It's really compact, very tubular, very cone-shaped, big head on the body, and again, much more like the big shape of the Caspian than the more elegant shape of most of these other terns. Black tern, typical tern shape. Forster's tern, common tern, short legs. Sandwich tern, royal tern. Sandwich, let's go back to what I was supposed to. Sandwich tern, Gull-billed, Royal, Caspian. That's the size. They're in order of size there. In the quiz I do, I actually used a photo like this to tell us the order of the size of these birds, and it was in order. So there's a giveaway. Yeah, please. So I hope that worked for you all. You got some information about our terns. And as I say, I saw, I guess, 6 of them, 6 species today plus Black Skimmer. So if you can get out in the next few days or week, you may pick up everything except these 2. Well, thank you all and enjoy the rest of tonight's program.